Welcome to America's Commercial Real Estate Show, your source for market intel, forecasts, and strategies. Hello, I'm Michael Bull. I appreciate you being with us today. This segment is brought to you by my company, Bull Realty. For customized asset and occupancy solutions, give me a call or visit bullrealty.com. Well, today we have a special show for you. I think we're always trying to skate where the puck is going, right? We're always trying to figure out what's down the road. And it's a bit of a special time, I think, with what's going on politically and with tariffs and kind of the division politically. We're at the tail end, potentially, of a very nice cycle that we've all had. And everyone's a little concerned, hey, where are we? What's going to happen in the future? Well, we've been doing this show now for 9 years, and I've had several guests over those years, and some of the guests have been really interesting and very special to me. Well, please welcome Hugh Kelly. He's a principal with Hugh Kelly Real Estate Economics, and he's joining us here in Studio One to help us look at 2020 or to infinity and beyond, as they say in Toy Story.
True enough.
Well, I appreciate you being with us, and congratulations on the Landauer White Award from the Counselors of Real Estate Lifetime Achievement Award. That's special. Congratulations.
It is very special. It's a special award considering who is giving it. But for me, it's particularly special because I knew Jim Landauer, who was the executive chairman of Landauer Associates when I joined it in 1978, and John White, who was then the chairman immediately after Jim Landauer and remained that until 1993, and I stayed at Landauer until 2001. So these were important people at the beginning of my career who pushed me in the direction of studying economics and real estate and trying to find ways to make that knowledge useful.
Yeah. Well, you've done a good job, and he was a Ph.D. He's a CRE counselor, and his company, Hugh Kelly Economics, is helps people make big decisions related to real estate. And one thing that I just kind of opened with is the cycle. It's been a great cycle. I know you're heavily involved with the ULI PwC Emerging Trends Report, so you've kind of got an inside look, if you will, at where we are and how long good times might last. And so if you look in your crystal ball, and where are we? How long is it going to last? Is there a recession coming down the road or a downturn, and when might it happen?
Forecasting is always hard, especially when it's about the future, said Yogi Berra. And it's very foolish for any of us to think that we become exempt from cycles. Cycles are one of the principal forms of change. And it's always the economy and the market trying to find an equilibrium point and never quite staying there once it arrives. And so we overcorrect on the upside, we overcorrect on the downside. And while all of that is going on, and this is why I think emerging trends is such a valuable contribution, there are things that slice through the cycles that help shape the future. So to answer your question, I think we're in a period clearly of deceleration. The exact timing of the end of the cycle is a fool's errand. None of us can give a point estimate as to when that's happening, but we can assess the strengths in the economy. We can assess the weakness of the economy, and I'm particularly concerned about two things. One is that the deceleration that we're seeing has some characteristics of being very persistent, lasting not for a year or two, but for 10. And the second is kind of complacency.
And back to the deceleration for a moment. You mean in GDP, or what areas are you seeing it?
Certainly, there's been a long period of deceleration, decade by decade by decade, in the growth rate of the economy, the GDP growth rate, for a variety of reasons. But to see the Congressional Budget Office forecast a decade of sub 2% GDP growth, I think is concerning. And then the second, this is demographically driven as much as anything else, to see, again, a long-term forecast where the average employment growth on a monthly basis is going to drop from what has been in the last 5 years or so, about 220,000 jobs per month on average, to less than 70,000 jobs per month on average. And for that not to come back to 200,000, but to stay down there, is concerning to me.
Yeah. And is that because we have such a tight job market? We have people with the wrong skills, or is it really a sign of the economy?
All of the above.
Okay.
All of certainly, if you've got unemployment below 4%, and it used to be that 5% was considered full employment, the pool of people who are available is less. But the reason for that is more profound than just the unemployment rate. We're in a period now where more people leave the labor force because of retirement, than there are Gen Zs coming into the labor force. It's a small demographic cohort. So in terms of our natural increase, and we're at the point now where even our birth rate is below replacement level. So like Japan, like Europe, we face a declining population left on our own without immigration. So I think that keeps the momentum of the economy slower. It's an anchor on that. And then yes, absolutely, there's a wide division in terms of the skills that are needed for the 21st century economy, and those that are the skills of people who have lost their jobs in the last 10 years. I mean, think of Southern Ohio, think of West Virginia. Now, increasingly, think of the Farm Belt, where that's an industry, and it's a third of the land in the United States, that is very important to us, but needs less and less in the way of labor to produce the product that's needed.
So you seeing some deceleration, you're expecting the cycle to change. When you look at commercial real estate, if we are, I guess when we have a downturn, is real estate and commercial real estate a good place to be? I mean, we haven't had seemingly a lot of overbuilding like we've had it doesn't seem like we have as much leverage on some of these properties. Is commercial real estate the place to be?
There's an argument to be made for that.
Yeah.
Although again, as I began to say, I think complacency can be an issue for us. Yes, it's true that in most property types, the supply side is not a major problem. That's certainly not true in retail.
Yeah.
Certainly not true in retail. I mean, we have 3 times the amount of retail space as the UK does per capita. We have 10 times as much as the European nations. So we have too many stores, and that's why retail as an investment class is so in disfavor right now. And we're beginning to pump up multifamily building, right?
Yeah.
Particularly at the luxury end, and so you're seeing some fragility in prices up there. But those are the exceptions rather than the rules. So yes, I think that the supply-demand side of things, as of today, looks good. The risk that I see is that very few forecasts of future demand on which the pro formas of investments are being made take into account that the rate of demand decelerates over time. And so I think that future income and the risk to future income from slower demand has not been factored into price. And so the words that we've heard for now 5 years, that commercial real estate is priced to perfection, it's not so perfect anymore. And when the investment community, and this is not just in real estate, this is in stocks as well, factors in a long period of slower demand, I think that there is an adjustment in price coming, a downward adjustment in price. And that is obviously risk for those who are holding those investments. But it is an opportunity, a buying opportunity once that pricing adjusts, because it's not going to stop at equilibrium.
Yeah. All right. So if this is the market and where your property is located, and you want to sell, give me a call, right?
Well, that's. I mean, that is another thing. Real estate is such a wide and complicated industry that anytime that there's a transaction opportunity, that is income for somebody. Yeah. And it's a way to secure capital gains for those who time their exit correctly. And it's also a chance for those who are skilled in structuring transactions, right? To say, what are the particular needs of the owner? What's the particular needs of the tenant who's in the building? And how do I, as a service professional, create value? Yeah. That's the difference between stocks and bonds and real estate. In stocks, you as an owner of the stock cannot create value. Right. But in real estate, you can create value, and that's an enormous difference and an enormous advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. The strength of the sponsor and the management's important, and then the actual how the trade is set up. And it's interesting. I've been in the business for brokers for 35 years. My business has grown more in downturns and in periods of equilibrium when people are looking at a little closer at what a broker actually does. We tend to grow. I don't want the market to go down, though. Believe me, I want the market to stay strong. Well, what does the things you've talked about so far mean for potential interest rates moving forward?
Again, I hate to be those two-handed economists, right? Yeah. But I think the moves of the Fed in the last 6 months to begin to have a more accommodative monetary policy, not only in terms of the price of money, the interest rate, but in terms of the volume of money, in terms of releasing of more reserves into the economy, has helped lengthen the cycle to some degree and cushion things. The bad news is that it uses up the Fed's dry powder for when a recession actually does hit. Yeah. And recessions attack at the points of economic excess. And we've used, both through the tax cut bill of 2017, then the budget, the deficit budget that was spent in economic good times, and now in monetary policy, we've used up a lot of the tools that we have that are counter-cyclical tools. And so there's less of an ability to have the safety net under the economy. So I don't mean the social safety net, but the policy safety net in terms of managing fiscal and monetary policy. We've frayed that net, and I worry about that as a risk.
Yeah, and that could be tough to consider and think about. But when the impact there, though, from what you're saying, is that we should not expect interest rates really to increase in the near future.
That is not not in the cards, I don't think.
Yeah.
If near future you mean the next 6 to 12 months, I think not. What would prompt the Fed to do that? A surging economy. And if the prospect is for a decelerating economy, you're not going to see the Fed pump the brakes on the deceleration. So my expectation is that Chairman Powell and his colleagues pause things. The minutes of the last Fed meeting said that there was a significant minority opinion to even forestall the last interest rate decline. And I think that a wait-and-see posture, particularly in an election year. The Fed does not like to make big changes during election years. They want to be seen as independent if, in fact, like human beings, they would feel pressure, economic pressure, political pressure. You can't separate these things. They would feel it, but they don't necessarily need to act on it. That's what maturity is all about. It's that you don't act on every feeling that you have.
Yeah, we shouldn't do that. Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, I want to ask you about some other things that could impact the economy and commercial real estate moving forward, including consumer confidence, some of the kind of the political pushing and shoving going on, and things like tariffs, and then we'll look briefly at some of the property types and sectors moving forward. So stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show. We'll be right back. America's Commercial Real Estate Show is brought to you by Bull Realty. For customized asset and occupancy solutions, visit bullrealty.com. Commercial Agent Success Strategies. Incredible training for commercial agents. Visit commercialagentsuccess.com.